Kier MP. I'm here today to talk to you about the disability benefit cuts and how they're going to have a major impact on disabled people. Firstly, I want to show you a video that shows a series of jobs that simply aren't jobs in society. They simply aren't jobs. They fail to be inclusive. They fail to be inclusive for disabled people. And a number of evidence demonstrates this. The tightening of PIP would have a major impact on disabled people on the whole. As you can see from the handout, for example, the disabled people are going to struggle. There are serious numbers that will lose PIP. For example, I also did a poll on Twitter asking disabled people if they relied on PIP as a wage for bills, for food to live on. 13 said yes. No one said no. That's clear evidence that disabled people are relying on PIP and personal independence payments. For example, somebody says the agency who placed them in a post applied for access to work. They found she needed a specific chair, mouse or laptop stand, which would cost £1,000. The company could claim it back, but the company refused and she had to leave. And then also another person has said she had a condition called myalgic epithelitis. I can't say it. There's no cure for that or treatment. Her body is broken, life is hard, and life is very hard, and she feels worthless under the Labour's new plans. And then my mum, for example, she has transverse myelitis. Transverse myelitis and functional neurological disorder. It makes her shake her legs when she gets triggered by something. For example, when we were in New York, for example, me and my mum, we were on the boat, and her legs started shaking because of the jolting and some triggers potentially. And so she got off the boat and needed assistance. But usually her disability is hidden, for example. As Jeremy Corbyn's letter as well highlights this too. As you can see, Jeremy Corbyn wrote to Parliament expressing his concern for the disability cuts. And in my own experience, for example, I worked for 7 years at VT UK. That 7 years, I feel like I wasn't supported and I could have had more support. I didn't have my own parking space, which led to stress and overwhelm for me because I was worried I won't be able to park, and if I don't park I can't work. And then also the commuting time was stressful too. I didn't have encouragement to have lunch. For example, you could have board games in the lunch area to encourage people to be social. There were no quiet areas. My workload was too much. And most people, autistic people, work extra hard due to their willingness to success. But overall, after these 7 years, it led to burnout and psychosis. And all you have to do is look into history, like Einstein, Tim Burton, Bill Gates. They've all been so successful, and they're all autistic or on the spectrum. Recently though, because of the changes that have been announced, I've been getting up really early just to try and succeed and make something of my life. It was really draining me and leading to burnout for me. But I feel the only way forward for me is to work for myself or work for an employer that is inclusive and understands my needs. Recently, I've changed my attitude. I've found happiness, and I found happiness is the way forward, not money or job or success. It's just happiness and finding things that make me happy. I feel I was employed by my previous employer because they had a connection with, for example, my first boss, his wife had terminal breast cancer. So he understood how life could be difficult and could see people's potential, even though he had a disability. And then I also was offered another job at the same time by a LGBT company who I was working for. But unfortunately, I was looking for a full-time job. So, what does this all reveal? Well, if you have experience of disability or mental health, you understand the need for support. You understand the need for people who have support. And you also know their potential and skills they have. This is exactly the same with the PIP changes and people's reaction. You don't know how severe things will be until you see it. You don't understand what people go through with a hidden disability or with a disability in total. So, for example, PIP needs to be designed from the ground up by people with lived experience, by people who understand what living with disability is like. And PIP needs to reflect these difficulties too. It's not just in daily living, but in daily thinking. The stresses of life and stresses and anxiety lead to psychosis, anxiety, mental health, transverse myelitis like my mum. And I feel the more if PIP is changed, and PIP is not changed with thorough effect and research, and the NHS is going to lead to overwhelm, which could eventually lead to the NHS crashing and a rising crime. So thank you for listening to me. I hope you really understood that how important disability benefits and personal independence payment is for disabled people. Remember, don't forget to subscribe to me and find my blog livingwithdan.com. See you soon.